Hello and welcome to another episode of the Spiritual Sisters podcast. It's Gabrielle Celeste, and the other two spiritual sisters are on a mini vacation, but don't worry, I got you. I'm so excited to welcome back our friend of the show, this friend of mine. Her name, hi Maria. I'm going to let you talk right now, but I just have to give you a very warm and welcome introduction. She's not only a bestie, she's also a guide for me, and her gifts are truly, like I say this to her in love and admiration, with love and admiration, second to none. And jokingly, I say this too. So we have a show, shout out to our girl Lydia. She's also been on the show, so go listen to that episode. But Lydia and I, we talk and we jokingly say like, oh, to like her and to my dad that like, what's it like to be God's favorite? Because you truly are so gifted and it comes from the heart and everything you do is with ethics and integrity. And I learned so much from you and I know Lydia does too. And I'm so excited to get into the episode today, but I'm going to pass it along to you and let you say hey, and we're just going to go from there. Hi, friend. How are you doing?
Good. Hi. Thank you so much, first of all, for the kind words. You are super sweet. And thank you for welcoming me back. I'm excited to be here.
She's excited to be. I'm so excited to have her. I was like, Maria, there's no one else that could do this topic the way that you could and do it justice because as you know, so go back and listen to our other episode with her. It's on darkness. It was like this time last year, actually, give or take. And Maria happens to be a triple earth sign. I'm a triple water sign. So, like, you know, we hold hands, we go hand in hand with one another. But Maria is the queen of grounding. I am the queen of not being grounded. So I just felt that Maria would be the person to talk to about grounding and all the things in terms of what it entails, what it is, how to ground, the importance of it, and what that looks like in today's world. So, hi, friend. Would you please be so kind as to just get right into the topic of maybe how you ground, what grounding is, and I'll just like let you take it from there.
Okay. So, what is grounding? I actually looked this up online. And what I found, just to explain it to people who are new to grounding and also someone who's spiritual, but grounding is good for anyone, all walks of life. So I wanted to try to get a definition that people could, wrap their head around. Mm-hmm. So what I found was it's a technique that involves doing activities that ground or reconnect you to the earth. What do you think about that, Gabby?
I don't like grounding. I mean, so people have some like background in terms of like how often Maria and I chat and just what our conversations look like. I tell her husband, I was like, you got to put a timer on this if like you're trying to leave at some point, because you and I will just riff for hours on end and it feels like it's 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. But in these long conversations, Maria knows I am not a fan of grounding, and I almost wonder if it's because it's just really challenging for me, and I almost prefer to be like in other dimensions in different states. I call it being in the oneness, but grounding to me, way that I guess I understand it, is like being here and being present and being on planet Earth and in your lower three chakras and truly being in the present moment and not future tripping. But I can totally understand the importance of it, because sometimes, at least this has been my experience, and I'm curious what your experience is being so grounded yourself. I feel unsettled when I'm not grounded.
Yeah, that's correct. So when you are not grounded, you feel like your energy scattered. Mm-hmm. And when you are grounded, you can make more sound decisions, you have more clarity, you feel focused, you feel strong, you feel at peace, calm, you feel more embodied. Mm. And those are some things that I experience, and also just things that some of my clients have experienced as well, that the feedback that I get from them. So it's something that can benefit pretty much anyone, right? Mm-hmm. And people don't want to ground. I know a lot of people that don't. It's something that I see quite a bit as well when in my day-to-day life, and also just with my clients. A lot of people see it as a chore, and they see it as something that they don't have time to do, and also they feel they're just too busy to do it. But what that signals to me is that people are Western culture, right? Everyone's always in a state of human doing, go, 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 go. They could be eating, but they're already thinking about what they have to do after eating and potentially even after that, right? So constantly just like in this ongoing circle of, okay, I got to get to the next thing and I don't have time to do this. But in all reality, grounding is something that you can fit into your day to day. One of the things that you can do that would really benefit you is go out for a walk. And it could be 10, 15 minutes. Try 15 minutes 3 times a week. And a challenge to that would be for you to, if you have your phone on you, for safety reasons, put it in your pocket and don't be listening to a podcast and don't be listening to, getting back to people on voice notes or things of that nature. What you could do is actually take in everything that's happening. I like to say, lose your mind and come to your senses. So what am I feeling right now? What am I seeing right now? What am I smelling? What am I hearing? And that will help you get a sense of what it feels like for you to be in the present moment and be focused. And by you doing these little things like going for a walk, also earthing is another one that is very popular. You can just go in your backyard or you can go to a park and go barefoot, put your feet on the grass, put your feet on the patio, in your backyard and drink your coffee and same thing. Just sit there, just be in the oneness with Mother Earth as well and see again, connect that to your senses. What am I feeling? What am I seeing? What am I hearing? How do I feel in this moment? And the more that you do that, the more that you'll be able to see what it feels like to be grounded, how it makes you feel in that moment and why it's important for you, and how to get back to that state of being. So I feel like grounded, like when people say, what does it feel like to be grounded? It's like a state of being, right? I feel peace, calm, the things that I mentioned before. And it's just knowing, like, let's say you're going and you're working and it's very stressful. Most of us have very busy lives, but that moment when you feel scattered and you feel anxiety or like you're caught up in chatter mind, right? Or you feel fear, you're no longer grounded. And you'll know how to get back to that if you know what it feels like in the first place to be grounded.
Yeah, you said something about Western culture and like taking me out of the equation. Why do you think, or maybe you can give some like real time examples of maybe why it's not as valued to be grounded in this society, especially in the Northern Hemisphere? We're in the United States, for those of you listening in a different country. But I almost kind of get the sense that like our value, and it makes sense because we're human doing, we're in more of a masculine focused, productivity focused environment. Do you think it's because it's embedded and ingrained in our culture to be like we're only valuable if we're producing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Again, I think it goes back to people feeling like they're too busy to do that, right? If I took minimum of 15 minutes to ground, and that means it would take 15 minutes of me getting from point A to point B, right? Or I would have to wake up earlier. So when you really start thinking about it, that is very much how our society is. It's more masculine driven. And we don't allow ourselves time to fill up our own cup, right? And for that feminine energy that people like to call it, right? To do so and to put ourselves as a priority and to show us that we are important. I think grounding is something that is very important because it has so many benefits. It can give you, like you could feel, one thing that you can do with grounding and the way that you feel also is you will feel like your moods are improving. You will feel like your sleep will improve. You feel more connected, not just to Mother Earth, but also to yourself. And start building a relationship with yourself also. So I think that we live in a time where people have forgotten what that feels like. And not everyone, but a lot of people are connected to their phones. They're on social media. They're gaming. If it's not that, then they're constantly doing something, whether it's they're working on 5 projects at once or they're busy being a mom and also working and attending to their home. and they forget about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So this could really be a way for you to come back to self.
So do you think that there are long-term negative effects of not being grounded? Because I feel like, and I'm just speaking from my personal experience, because I'm coming back to a place of just like producing and doing so much just because that was what that season of life I felt required of me.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I feel like I've gotten a little bit more of a break, coming back into balance with being instead of doing, I'm actually so much more tired than I ever thought or realized because I almost allowed myself to be. But I almost kind of feel too that like if you don't allow yourself, or if you don't become, or if you don't ground and you don't make that a priority, I think maybe one avenue, and this isn't to project, could be possibly getting sick.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, because you could only go on for so long, in a state of human doing and just constantly doing something before your body's like, hey, we need to rest. And if you don't rest, then, it's going to show up as an illness, or you just being exhausted to the point to where now you're going to have to take that mandatory rest. Also, another thing that I feel is a danger of not grounding, and I feel as though this is actually pretty sad, is if you're not able to live in the present, and you don't have to be perfect, you don't have to judge where you're at right now, but a danger of that is that you're not showing up for your life. If you're constantly thinking about the past or you're futurizing, then you're not in the now, and everything happens in the now. So, that's where you make your memories. And if you're not doing that, if you're not open and available for that, then you're just in a constant state of being trapped in the future or in the past. And that isn't a good place to be either.
No, totally. So this is something that I mean, I admire so much about you and of you, but something that I think you do very well is being grounded and present, which is why I'm like, oh, she's totally the person to talk to for this specific topic. But one thing that I haven't been able to really put my finger on is why it's more challenging for me I guess, the more conscious I am of my higher four chakras, so my heart, my throat, my third eye, and my crown, why it's more challenging to ground since having expanded those chakras, and why it's more challenging to come back to the lower three. Do you think that there's any spiritual reason for that?
Um, so I honestly feel, friend, that, and you can go ahead and let me know if this resonates or not, but I feel like with you, it could be a sense of you really liking to be with the oneness, and you like being in your upper chakras.
Mm-hmm.
So your lower chakras, which are the root, solar plexus, sacral, right, are connected by the portal, which is the heart chakra. From there, we connect to our upper chakras, and that's pretty much like, as I like to say, like where the gold is at, right, is in your heart chakra. Because if you can operate that and unlock your heart chakra, then there's no limit as to what it is that you can accomplish or what you can manifest, etc. But I feel as though being here on earth, and especially if you are keeping up with the news or if you're just having a hard time, it's easier to get in a state of detachment to the point to where you just start thinking and fantasizing about maybe even what a better life would be. Or if you're on social media and you see that so-and-so is constantly on trips, oh my God, I wish I had that life, right? So it kind of pulls you out of your body, and you're now like just caught up in your head. Like it's all mental at that point. So you're already pretty much detaching yourself from your grounding and your power center. How does that feel?
That makes sense. And like, not to make it about me, it's more just like I can speak to it because I'm consciously aware of it. And that's, I think, something that I don't think people are aware of in our society today, because so many people, the term, it's kind of rude, but the term is like in this world, it's, and this work is that they're asleep. And I don't think people are many people are aware of like what their attachment to the phone is actually creating on an energetic level. And I bring up the phone because to me that's the main example that I see it in terms of us almost being displaced from our own different energy bodies, so like our emotional, our mental, our physical, our spiritual, because of the distraction and like the pull towards like our phone and what that represents.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And also, just to throw something else into that and add on to what you were saying, our electronics, they drain us
Oh,
because of
EMFs.
radiation. Yeah, that's,
Mm-hmm.
coming off of them. So that doesn't help either. And constantly staring at a phone. I mean, I'm sure there's tons of studies out there that people
Mm-hmm.
have seen of how that's debilitating to our health and our mental awareness and what it can do for us. So, in all reality, there's many ways to ground, and I can go through a few more
Yeah, I would love
different
that.
ways. But getting out of nature is ultimately nothing can replace it.
Mm-hmm.
To have that connection with Mother Earth. It's free, so it doesn't cost you anything. So that's
Facts.
the way to go. If you can
Mm-hmm.
do that, if you have family, you can go to the park with the children, have the children play. You just sit there, and while you're watching your kids play, you're just doing nothing but being in that moment, and you're
Mm-hmm.
building memories. So
Mm-hmm.
that's good too. Another thing that you can do is crystals, right? I
Mm-hmm.
know a lot of people are going to be like, well, that's woo woo. And it is to some extent, but if you think about it, they're from the earth. So a few that come to mind that you can go ahead and get is a smoky quartz. That would be good for grounding, also protection. Black obsidian, onyx, those are all good. But even if you
I
wanted to a rose quartz, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to
no,
cut you off.
no, go ahead, finish. I cut you off.
Yeah, even a rose quartz could be grounding as well because it will connect you to your heart chakra in that moment.
Ooh, I think I wear like 3 of those that you mentioned on my left hand because left is receiving. So
Right?
yeah, love that. She's on point. Yeah, I mentioned this in a previous episode, where Nicole's like she said it facetiously and she was joking, but she was like, "Oh, like Gabby could not be on Instagram and on her phone." And I was like, "Actually, I deleted the app for 2 years and I've never been more psychic until like where I'm at right now." And it
Yeah.
was wild what that did for my nervous system. And now, I mean, it's kind of like a necessary evil because I do post a lot and share information for, the podcast and my own business via Instagram, and I catered to that audience. Like I get a lot of information in terms of what my clientele is looking for through that specific platform. But I also have like boundaries and perimeters around it. Like it's set to, be asleep or in sleep mode after a certain period of time because you just kind of almost find yourself, and it's a way of becoming ungrounded, where it's like
Yeah.
you open up your app and it's like you forget what you opened up the app for. And that is one of the reasons, and one of the ways, common ways in which like you're almost being taken out of your body and you're giving power away to these electronics and these platforms that essentially are pulling you in on purpose. So it's almost kind of like a detachment from your own humanity, if you will.
Oh, it's very true. I agree with you 100%. I feel like that's exactly what we're doing is, we're giving over our power to the
Hmm.
electronics.
Hmm.
And it's so funny that you said that because, doom scrolling is a thing. I mean, I've even been caught up, like get me on a good website with some good beauty, skincare and stuff, and I'm there for a bit. You don't even know it, right? When you go down that rabbit hole. So it's very easy to fall into that. Very
Hmm.
easy. And also, even with children, even watching TV can also do the same thing to us. So it's just being mindful. I mean, you don't have to go total extreme with it, but just maybe start to break up your day with a walk in the morning or even a walk before you go to bed. Being exposed to being outside pretty much in the morning or at night. There are studies that say that your natural like rhythm will get accustomed to that. It'll be easier for you to go to bed. Turning off your electronics or putting them on sleep mode 30 minutes to 60 minutes before you go to bed will help you also wind down and improve sleep. And that's also something you can do for grounding as well. Um, it really helps with that. I forgot one that's pretty obvious too, which is eating rooted vegetables. So potatoes,
Oh, I love potatoes.
sweet potatoes, no kidding. I do too. And things of that nature that will really help too, because food is also very grounding. So
Hmm.
all on its own. If you can do that with rooted vegetables, even more so.
So I wanted to make a comment then ask you a question. Did you
well, I guess comment question and another question. Did you see that in Europe, I think it was, there was like a blackout in terms of like electricity and everyone was forced to go outside and it looked like almost like a picture from the 90s where everyone was outside, they were in nature at parks, they were playing frisbee with one another. And I was like, what timeline are we on? Like
That
what
is so crazy.
isn't it? Because like if you think about it, that's what it would be like if we weren't so attached to our electronics.
Yeah, I'm probably aging myself here, but it's okay. I mean, that's how it was when I was growing up. It was great when you said that. I did not see that on the news. I don't
Mhm.
really keep up much with the news, but it sounds like they had a great day. That's what it
Well,
sounded like to
yeah.
me.
Well, the news is another way in which they try, or the powers that be try to,
Yeah.
again, detach and cause you, or at least try to make you not be grounded within your own energetic body and literally physical body. But
Mhm.
so say that, like, I have the privilege of working from home and I'm really actually starting this month. That's my goal at the time of recording. We're recording at the beginning of June.
Mhm.
And I'm going to really push myself to spend more time outside because I don't need to be working on the computer as much as I have been over the last 3 months, just given the season that my business was in.
Mhm.
But say that like we are working in, say, like an office environment or we're in school and we're in walls, right? And we don't have direct access to nature, at least immediately. What are some ways in which you can be grounded if you're only, forced to like rely on your own inner energy? Because, and even there's like another example that I feel called to share, and I've shared this before about a year and a half ago when I was house sitting at my sister's, and at the point she lived in a high rise. I had the most challenging time grounding because I was like on the 23rd floor. And I
Mhm.
was like, okay, that definitely determined that I cannot live in a high rise or too far up above ground. So sometimes, because we do have a lot of psychics that listen to this show, I'm curious if you have any suggestions as to how to ground, like within yourself, if maybe nature isn't as readily available.
Yes. So, one of the things that you can do is you can listen to the Schumann resonance. That's
Hmm.
7.83 hertz, and it's Earth's heartbeat. You can find a playlist pretty much anywhere, Spotify, YouTube, Apple has them too. And you can go ahead and even listen to that on a low setting. It bypasses your conscious mind and your subconscious and will start to help you feel more grounded.
Hmm.
So just listening to that can be very helpful. Also, another thing that you can do is find a tree breath meditation, or if you want to go ahead and try to do a meditation, or not even necessarily a meditation, but breath work, what you can do as well is put your hands either on your thighs or on your stomach, because that's grounding. And when you do that, have your feet barefoot on the floor. If you don't have that, if you can't do that because you're at work, then that's fine. Just go ahead and put your feet flat on the floor. And from there, what you can do is you can envision that your feet and your legs are becoming roots and they're being
Hmm.
rooted into Mother Earth's core. And just sit there with your eyes closed, just breathe in and out, nothing too fancy, but with the intention of I'm grounding, I'm rooted into Mother Earth, and just keep breathing, and that can help as well.
Yeah, I was just thinking because I don't feel shame in admitting this, but I'm consciously working on grounding because I'm really starting to see how important it is and how ungrounded most of the time that I am. Even and it's actually kind of amazing how much I can still produce being ungrounded given the type of work that we do. I'm just like, okay, like Gab, give yourself more credit. But I've felt like when I am grounded, like one I can tell and it's like so much more enjoyable. But when I'm not grounded and I'm like out of my body and I'm so far in my thoughts, like intrusive thoughts, which is typically how I know like I'm not grounded.
Right.
I'm like over imbalanced and I would say in my more mental body than anything else. I like don't feel good. I'm like, oh my gosh, where did these negative thoughts come forth? I don't feel good about myself, like my physical body. I'm just like, oh, like this is a sign for me to go and get grounded. And I guess my point in bringing that up is just sharing that you actually feel so much better when you are grounded because you are meant to be enjoying this dimension that is
Yes,
planet Earth.
definitely. Whether psychic or not, right? Every person that is here on Earth is here for the human experience. And what that means is being a part of this world. Even for some of the people that I've spoken to, like some clients, their job is very grounding for them. It keeps them connected to earth. So it's very important to take those times out of your day, or even if you can't do it every day, start with something small just to be a part of the experience, just like you mentioned. So I agree.
Yeah. I just got back from Boston and I went to Salem with Lydia and another one of our girlfriends. And I think we sent you a picture, I can't remember, but we went into these stores. Like you can tell like which stores are working in the light and which ones are not.
Mm-hmm.
And we both came out of one store and we were just like, what just happened? And we literally had to go like hug a tree and like put our hands on the tree because we just felt so out of our body and more like imbalanced. I think for me it was the mental. I don't know about the other girls, but it was the most crazy experience. But I will say I also felt very grounded in Boston, which I wasn't expecting.
Nice. And what do you feel like when you're grounded?
Oh, I'm happy. I'm not bitter. I'm not frustrated. I'm not mad at the world. I'm like, oh, like maybe this dimension isn't so ghetto.
Right.
I'm such a brat. I'm like, it's so ghetto here. Like, I'd rather be elsewhere. And that's when I'm like, okay, like, Gab, you need to come back and be here and enjoy planet Earth because that's what you signed up to do. And I used to get so mad when I would have like other friends say that. And I'm just like, what are you talking about? Like, you just misunderstand me. You don't get me. But it's like, no, like, you really are. Like you are supposed to be here. However, I will say, like, I'll add a caveat to this.
Mm-hmm.
The more inner work that you do, it's a natural process for the other four chakras, the upper four, to be expanded. And you naturally almost become, I guess, a little bit more expanded, evolved, and you're living in those upper chakras. So I get that because at least that's been my process. However, I think this is actually something that's very important to share. It's that if you're wanting to experience, and I got this directly from our shaman, so also caveat, I met my shaman through Maria, who's not taking clients, by the way. Everyone asks me, is she open? No, she's not. So please kindly do not ask.
Yeah.
I've already struck out with her a couple times. But anyways, all this to say, if you want money, resources, successful, business, partnerships, want to feel better about yourself, that's all lower three chakras. And that's part of living on planet Earth and experiencing what it's like to be human. So it's unavoidable. It's like, it's truly a balance, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And that's where grounding comes in to support with the theme of balance.
Absolutely. And it really helps too, for someone like you, because you are very highly psychic. You're so tapped in. So by adding the grounding in, then you're also able to manifest the things that you want here on the 3D by being grounded. So yeah, I mean, it definitely is just trying to find that balance for yourself. And sometimes it could be hard to do that. It's different for everyone. So yeah, just having that awareness and trying to see what that would look like for you. But even having the awareness of, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can pinpoint how it feels to be grounded, right?
Yeah.
So it's all just being consciously aware. And the moment that you become aware to something and you expand your consciousness, well, then you can start working on a solution.
So tough. But yeah, it's like truly the process of being conscious is like also a big component with that. Have you read The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer? He also wrote the Surrender Experiment.
I have not.
I think you would really enjoy it. I would love to hear your thoughts if you get around to it, because I'm like, oh, what would it be like for someone who's so grounded to have that takeaway? Because I feel like you would have a lot of agreements with what he said.
So he's talking mainly about grounding?
Importance of grounding, but it's almost like it kind of makes a full circle. So like background on this book, right? We should start a book club, but anyway.
We should. That would be fun.
Right?
Everyone wants to join.
I know, right? So pretty much this guy, he was an economics professor, and his dad was also like, I think his dad was like a stockbroker, was like very much in like that masculine patriarchy asleep world, if you will. And then one day he had this profound experience where he just like decided to do yoga, and it was like he unlocked basically like his higher self, which he didn't label it as his higher self, but he came into the awareness of like, oh, and like it just pulled him in. So like this guy, PhD student, he ended up finishing it. And this is like with the story that he tells in the Surrender Experiment. But he ends up like living like a hippie, going into the forest and creating like a temple and like literally just like living like off the grid, if you will.
Wow.
Then he details basically his life journey into becoming more expanded with his consciousness by meditating, by being with the oneness. And throughout his like 30 to 40-year journey, he ends up building like this billion-dollar company, all while still living in the forest and expanding his consciousness and through the element of surrender. So that's like what the surrender experiment is about.
Mm-hmm.
But he couldn't talk about the surrender experiment. He couldn't write it. So he was writing the other book, The Untethered Soul, first. And in The Untethered Soul, he speaks to, and I just finished this on the plane yesterday, so this is why it's fresh and top of mind. He speaks to what basically meditating and expanding his consciousness, living in balance between the lower 3 chakras and the upper 4 chakras did for him, and how he was almost able to enjoy being here and truly living in abundance, but also still being connected to the oneness through the modality that is meditation and doing the inner work and becoming more aware of his psyche. So it was like so profound because it was almost like language that he was able to add, that he was able to provide through his own experience to the importance of grounding, but still kind of being in balance and living between both worlds.
That sounds like a really good book. And I think
really
I need to pick it up.
Yeah. And
both of them?
Both of them. Both of them. Yeah. And then in the last 2 chapters of The Untethered Soul, he speaks to the heart chakra and the importance of the heart chakra, because if your heart chakra is expanded, because here's the thing, people are like, oh, like, and I get it, because I've been there for sure. Right. Like, how cool is it to do predictions and to be able to connect with, someone that's passed, depending if you want to do the work or not. You're like, depends on who you ask, Maria.
Yeah.
Depends on who you ask, Gab. But I don't think what people realize is that like going inward is what's actually going to allow you to do that, because your heart chakra is what expands and provides the capability to do that, even though people covet like the third eye and they covet like the other ones. But really, it's like the most powerful chakra that you can really expand through doing the inner work is the heart chakra.
That's very true. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Because if you're vibrating, right, like the highest frequency is love. Mm-hmm. So if you're vibrating there, then you're pretty much, it's a portal. So you're tapping into this world, like I mentioned, and also the ethereal realm if you're psychic. Not saying that you absolutely need that if you're psychic, but doing the inner work is just going to clear up space within your heart chakra and all your chakras, because I mean, they all affect the other one way or another, right? It could be minimal impact, but that's just how it goes. It's never just one chakra that's off. It usually has something to do, like it's bleeding into another chakra. So when you're doing chakra work and shadow work, so the more shadow work that you do, the healing process, the more of that darkness that you're able to integrate so that you can pull in more light. And I think it just makes you even the more tapped in.
Yeah. And you know what happens when that happens? I mean, I know you know. Because the more that you can hold the light, the more you trigger the darkness within other people.
That's very true. That really does happen. And also, if we do want to talk about being grounded while having gifts and abilities, so that information that comes through, you're able to actually ground that within yourself and ground it here on Earth. So,
and that leads to embodiment. Sorry to cut you off. And it leads to actually giving language to what those messages are. Because it's like, have you come across a psychic that's been like just so ungrounded and is like not even here? You can just see them and they're floating somewhere else. Yes. And they're not existing with, and this is just an example because I'm really focused on money right now and I'm mastering the concept of it because I want to teach from that place. But there's a lot of people that do this work that are not grounded, that struggle with resources in the form of money. And I think it has to relate to not being here on planet Earth.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, so our shaman once, talked to me about how monks are they're highly spiritual, right? And they meditate for hours and they're deep in the oneness. And she was talking about how they potentially are like cut off at the neck because they live together, right? Like they live in a monastery. Is that the correct word?
I think so. Yeah.
right? And they actually don't have like the lower chakras that are open enough for them to live in the day-to-day world, like hold a job, pay bills and stuff like that, which I get. They probably signed up for that, and that's a path that they're on, but I thought that was very interesting when she pointed that out. She was just pointing that out as just to give me, some insight as to what it would look like to not be grounded.
Yeah, when you say that, I just think of Jay Shetty, and he's recently got a lot of slack because he used to be like a monk of some sort. I never finished his book, which is surprising. It was surprising to Nicole because she's like, "What? Like, I thought that was one of the books that you were going to mention, like the book recommendations in that podcast that we did in that episode." But, yeah, he's a funny one. I guess I haven't put too much thought to him. I'll circle back to him, I guess, when I've really decided what my opinion about him is. But that makes a lot of sense if you are so into the oneness that you're not here and enjoying. And maybe that's their soul path. I shouldn't really speak on that, but it makes sense as to why they would maybe struggle with like having, I guess, a normal, quote unquote. I'm making air marks. If you're watching YouTube, a normal life. Okay, so I have a lot of water in my chart. You have a lot of earth. I have a question. Do you think it's easier to ground if you have a more dominant earth chart than the other three elements?
Well, the only experience I have is my own, but being a triple earth sign and having a lot of earth in my chart, I can honestly tell you, just reflecting back on my life, I feel as though I've been pretty grounded my whole life, and it was easy for me to ground even if something did knock me out of my center, like, whether it was stress or something like a life event that happened that was pretty bad, no matter what, I was able to come back to, I guess, what is grounding, right? Being grounded. So yeah, I would say based off of my experience, that it's kind of like built into me. So
yeah, and maybe there's an advantage for the earth signs, I suppose.
I think so. Yeah, because if you think about it, same with you, right? You're a triple water sign, so you're like the opposite of me, and you love being with the oneness, and you're so tapped in, right? And you love being there, because what is that? That's water element, your intuition.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, once I lock this in, though, to anyone that's listening, once I lock in the lower three, and it's over. It's game over. Just wait, and I figure out the energy of the root chakra. I'm coming for everyone. Just kidding. I'm not. But have you actually? I have another question that's actually related to children that we didn't talk about, but it just kind of came up. But before we get there, have you ever come across anyone that is truly just fully centered and in balance with all their chakras? Because I haven't in all my readings that I've done.
I feel as though it's something that you just work on, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like the healing process, I feel, is reflected through your chakras sometimes as well. So, and I feel like we're all a work in progress.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it makes sense because the chakras are always spinning and the energy is always moving. So maybe it's just like, I don't know, Jesus. I joke.
I will say this, though. I will say that I've checked the chakras of children before, and their chakras are just very open, and I mean, they spin so well balanced. But if you think about it, I mean, kids don't really have a whole lot of hangups, right?
Or they shouldn't, but yes.
Yeah. So they're just happy, and I mean, they worry about if they're going to go swimming today, or what are they going to do? Can they have a smoothie today? Can they have ice cream? So they're just pretty much, the majority of children are just very happy, and they're pretty balanced.
Yeah, that was my question, is if you've noticed if children are naturally grounded or not. And if not, like, what are some tools or ways in which we can support children to become more balanced and grounded?
Yeah, good question. What I've noticed is also with technology and screen time, right? It does the same thing to children that it does to an adult, which is they detach, because it's almost like they become kind of a zombie when they're on electronics, right? And they're just there going through the motion of just like watching and being fixated on whatever it is. And a lot of children don't get a lot of time outside.
Mm-hmm.
So just doing the same things, you know, it kind of reminds me of like inner child work, right? It's like you're going back to a place of when you were a kid and, you know, just finding that joy and curiosity within you. Like that can be applied to adults and to children as well. So the same thing goes for the children, just having them play outside, taking them to a park, you know, if you have a body of water near you, that's also very helpful. Hiking is really good. So just really getting them out of the house so that they can play. And if parents are okay with this, get their hands dirty. You know, you could even buy nowadays those sensory bins with sand in them. And that actually helps the creative process and it helps them ground as well. It's good for adults too.
So this is just coming to mind and I feel called to ask because I'm thinking about when I'm having kids and my chart's really active for it in 2027, 2028. And I'm probably going to be one of those people that's going to be like, by the way, I'm pregnant, like, sorry, but like 9 months in, like, I don't think I would announce my pregnancy just because I'm so private and I don't know the energies behind it. But all this to say, I don't have kids yet, but eventually I think they're coming because I signed up for it, right? Yes. Did you notice a difference in that season of life for yourself in relation to grounding that maybe some pregnant mothers would be able to take away, or expecting or soon to be mothers or mothers in general could take away from this episode in relation to grounding?
Well, what I would say is, you know, it's a personal process, I guess, for everyone, how their pregnancies are going to be. Mine were great. I will say that I was super happy. I went on walks pretty often, and that was very grounding for me. That was like the form of exercise that I took too. So mothers can do that. They can also do pretty much anything that I spoke to in this episode for grounding, because a lot of the things that I mentioned are things that don't cost money for the most part, right? Is accessible to everyone. So just doing any of those things would really help. Also, the only thing that I would say is with the crystals, there are some crystals that are not good to carry while being pregnant. I know malachite is one of them, and I'm not sure if there's any others. So if that is a route that somebody decides to take, I would just make sure that whatever crystal it is that they're carrying or, you know, touching doesn't have any negative effects for them.
Oh, that's so interesting. I didn't even take that into account. We went to one of these stores. Lydia calls it the trifecta. So it's like one of 3 stores that she visits while she's in Salem because she's so close to it. And it was a crystal store. There was like a wholesaler. You could get things really, you know, inexpensively. And there were literal like crystals for certain purposes that I don't even think I took into account that you should be using for certain things. And that makes sense that pregnancy, which is a portal in itself, would have that same requirement or suggestion, I guess. So, yeah. Dang. Well, I hope that so many people will have some takeaways from this episode because it's important. And I do think that there are a lot of just things like our phone and social media and electronics that are embedded in our culture that are intended to pull us away from being grounded. And I just hope that people have that in the back of mind as we close out this episode. But what I wanted to say and ask you, actually, before I even pass it along to you, I forgot to say how Nicole started off the last episode, and I'm not even going to be able to do it justice. Are you ready for it?
Yeah.
You're Latina Barbie.
I'm not ready for it. She's so sweet. I love your sister. I love you both.
Oh, we love you. You're the homie for sure. You're our girl. So I can't wait to hear the feedback about this because you know I love making you laugh. So,
oh my gosh, yes.
Especially the Leo brother. I'm like, shout out to the Leo brother. We make an exception for you, sir.
Yeah, he's gonna love that for sure.
Where can people find you?
Oh, well,
I'll put the show notes. I'll put your link in the show notes.
Probably gonna have to be.
She's like, I'm running. So Maria, just so people know, she's a double Taurus. She's a double Taurus. She definitely downplays her gifts, and she is truly, like I said, second to none when it comes to this work. And so, all this to say, I think she prefers being out of the limelight, even though it's just calling to her. But she has the best readings. She takes on clients for one-to-one mentorships if it's aligned, and she's just beautiful inside and out. So be sure to check her out.
Oh, well, thank you so much, my friend. I really appreciate just you as a human, as a friend, and I adore you. Thank you so much for your kind words and for having me on.
Oh, likewise, anytime. I really want to have you on for the next one, which you talked about, which is like the different energetic bodies. So stay tuned for that, my friend. You're welcome anytime.
That would be
and yeah, until then, oh my gosh, do you want to say bye with me?
I do.
Oh my gosh, okay. All right. Bye.
Bye.